So even within the very modern phraseology of the anatomy of a serpent, do we find the consistency of the truth. The Jacobson's organ is connected to what? To a forked tongue, a split tongue, a double tongue. Now, these descendants of Jacob, which have been adopted into the tribes of Israel and even given the name Israel themselves, we find out that the name Israel is put upon the head of the descendants of Ephraim. And then we find out that Ephraim means what? Ephraim means double. Ephraim means two pasture land. And we're going to find out the two pasture land that Ephraim occupies is going to be this material and spiritual portion of the brain. But we're not going to talk about it in reference to Ephraim, but I just want you to see that the consistency of everything that we've talked about is there. This Jacobson's organ is by no accident that it's described as such, as it's connected to the forked tongue of the serpent. And of course, we find out just the connection to the double being Ephraim and Manasseh themselves are being used to spread the serpent doctrine. And then Ephraim is even further described as being the main one. And then Ephraim itself now fulfills the fractal because Ephraim means double, two pasture land. So just think about that. And then maybe watch the series entitled Ephraim and Manasseh, USA and UK. So as we move further, if you can begin to hold up all of this information here, let's bring it back here and understand why the symbolism of this eight-legged creature or creatures is needed to symbolize their agenda. And it's going to come back down to what we just saw in Isaiah about this weaving of the spider's web. Virtually the octopus and the spider are the same character, just being used to symbolize different details about their agenda. But to understand why this 8 is important, it comes back down to this fractal equation right here. And it comes back down to the division of knowledge. And then it's going to come back down to the two hemispheres of the brain. And we're going to find out that all of this is related from the beginning of Genesis with the serpent once again. So the serpent offers this divided knowledge, which is now being symbolized as the two portions of the brain. He makes one good and then the other evil. Remember, that's what the serpent offers. He offers knowledge, but in a dualistic form. So he creates the first division, the first separation in the program of divide and conquer. So that would be best shown to you within this spider's web, which is symbolizing this fractal, this event in Eden where the temptation was offered, this double was offered as this symbolism for the apple. Now, you know, the symbolism for the apple is used in modern days to symbolize what? Knowledge. What do children have been symbolized as putting an apple on the teacher's desk, which symbolizes what? Knowledge. So we find out that the apple itself fulfills the fractal also in many ways. This is one of them. So now, if there's been a division of knowledge, we need to understand that this knowledge is related back again to this letter, this controlling of the letter, and only distributing the dead letter rather than the spiritual living word. And they do it from the onset of the Eden event. So if the brain has two hemispheres, one is material, one is spiritual, we find out that the left hemisphere of the brain is materially minded, and that the right hemisphere of the brain is spiritually minded. Well, to help us understand that and get to this point of understanding about why 8 legs is needed for this control, the symbolism for a spider and the symbolism for an octopus, you need to understand how this works. One side of the brain is dominated by a material outlook, but yet it still recognizes these 4-dimensional perceptions of knowledge: math, science, religion, and arts. All forms of knowledge can be grouped up into these 4 main variables. Well, we find out that the spiritual portion of the brain still recognizes these same 4 dimensions of knowledge, but instead it uses the spiritual version of the brain first. And then we find out that the material version of the brain uses the material sciences first, and then uses the spiritual version second. I'll be back.